anybody like to make a motion either virtually or in person? Okay, anybody second?
I second.
All right, all in favor of opening the meeting now? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then. Well, welcome to the January 8th, 2024 meeting of the Climate Action Plan Committee, which is a hybrid meeting. I'm very thankful to SMAC for being here and helping us technically and also for filming this. I'd also like to give out a shout out to DPW for doing a great job of salting the parking lot so we could get here safely. That's very much appreciated. I would just like to note as we begin that this is an open meeting and the public is welcome to attend in person or virtually. And I do believe we have a public comment section at the end, towards the end of meeting, item number 10. But it is definitely critical that observers that they be silent so that the members of the meeting, whether they're here in person or virtually, can conduct the meeting and proceed without interruption or distraction. So I would ask our visitors to be silent and observe the meeting until such time as public comment comes on. So following our agenda, we have review of the minutes from our last meeting, which was sent to everybody, I believe, early today. And this is from our meeting on December 11th, 2023, which was an in-person meeting. And I would just open the floor to comments of anybody who might want to comment on the minutes or have any potential edits to the minutes. I guess I'll look to my virtual members first. Laura or Rachel, any edits to the minutes?
No.
Laura, do you have any edits?
There were a couple of just spelling errors within. I'm trying to pull it up right now, but give me 1 second. But please carry on while I pull that up.
Aisha, do you have any edits to the minutes?
No.
All right. I actually had a question. So I in the attendance section, and I would already ask if the members could, thank you, be quiet. In the attendance section, Rachel, I thought you attended on December 11th virtually and not in person. Is that correct?
Yes, okay. I've been attending virtually.
Okay, so we'll put that down for virtual, make that the other comment I had on page 2. When we're referencing the EEA grant, I think there's an extra E. I think it's just EEA. And then on page 3, referencing the school engagement and toolkit, I think I would just call Superintendent Bayetta as opposed to Super Bayetta. I think I would just make that, spell that out. I also just wanted to thank Michael for the minutes again, especially when there's been a whole month since the last meeting. It's honestly so helpful to see these recorded in such details. It's really going to help us in our work. Anybody else have any other potential edits? Otherwise, does anybody want to make a motion about the minutes?
I can just add, Laura, if you if you see anything later, email me over the next day or two. I try to get the edits out. I'd get the edits done as soon as I can, as opposed to the minutes themselves. But within a day or two, if you look at them tonight or whatever, just send me a quick email. It can be a marked up copy or just your own comments, and I'll just incorporate them then.
Yep, will do. There weren't very many, and Molly may have already touched on them. So I'll just take another pass, and I'll just email you. Thanks, Michael.
All right, anybody want to make a motion to adopt the minutes as amended?
I, Aisha, make a motion to adopt the minutes as amended.
Any second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. So we are done with agenda item number 1. Number 2. Agenda item number 3 is the Springtown meeting article for a consultant and also just discussion of review of the consultant scope of work. And this is a pretty meaty topic. James, you've joined us? We can't hear you, but James, can you just speak? We've got you now. Thank you. Thank you for joining the meeting, James.
You're welcome.
We just have started item number 3, which is the Springtown meeting article, which I know that James has done a lot of work and thought about, and I've done a lot of work and thought about, and it's kind of Lengthy topic, but I would like to bring everybody up to speed. So we have, had under discussion, quite frankly, for a few months back, even potentially obtaining funding for a consultant to help us through the planning process and the analysis process. As one can see from looking at other climate action plans, that can be very complex and sophisticated. So I know that James solicited a general quote from, I'm going to say the firm name wrong, Witten, Horsley.
Correct.
Oh, wow, I got it right. I've spoken to 3 consultants, one of whom had lots of advice and was helpful, but her firm actually was too busy. The other 2 consultant quotes I got is a very elaborate quote from Kleinfelder, which is actually an engineering firm which has worked with the town in the past. And I got a little bit simpler and also lower price quote from Diane Moss, and she is with the firm of, make sure I get this right, Fuss, which is spelled F-U-S-S, and O'Neill. So she gave us a quote as well. And I'll just tell you, so the Fuss and O'Neill quote was a range of $62,000 to $73,000, and the Kleinfelder quote, which was quite just lengthy in its discussion, quite frankly, I think they had a total of $108,000, unless I'm reading that wrong, because they.
85.
So I'm looking at, is this the one that you have? Yes, you are looking at it. All right, and at the end, is that how you read that, James? Is if you look at the last page of the Kleinfelder, it's got budget core, budget additional, total budget at $92,300. I guess I was a little confused because there was something in the first section which was $108,000. Oh, I see. I now I understand it. If they don't do a greenhouse gas inventory, then their quote is $92,000. And I do have an update on that information. So before we dig into these, the wording of a potential article and the 3 quotes, just to update you, so the Sustainability Committee has been in contact with MAPC, which actually has a greenhouse gas inventory tool, a very sophisticated spreadsheet tool. Talking with them, we were happy to learn that they were using figures from 2017. They now have much more updated figures available. I believe it's 2021. That tool is out there, and there are certain volunteers who are going to volunteer to create a greenhouse gas inventory for our use as a town, including for our committee's use. So many thanks to them. They have committed to doing that, so that certainly lowers what we would have, the price of what we would have to get a consultant to do. And again, 2 more points to add to this. So with respect to the MAPC grant, which the Sustainability Committee applied for in spring of 2023 as a planning grant, we're waitlisted. We have been told officially we, quote, don't need to apply again, which I guess reading between the lines means they're going to help us at some limited level with planning. But they have also said you need to go get more funding and or another grant from EEA. That's Energy and Environmental Affairs. EEA's grant, what do you call it, their proposal, it's not even out yet. So we don't know what it looks like. We don't know the amount that it'll be in. We don't know the timing of it. It could be many, many, many months away. So we're in a situation where we don't know whether we would get or not an EEA grant. We don't know the timing of that. We do know that we need help. So with all that background, we have prepared, and a couple of different drafts are before you, of a potential article to take to town meeting in the spring, in May, when we might have a little bit more information, quite frankly, at least as to the EEA grant potential. A couple of different versions, and I'll say my version had a blank number because I didn't want to suggest the number. That's for us to discuss tonight. I actually will just tell you, and then I want to turn the floor over to James because he's thought about this a lot. I liked James's kind of rewrite of what we were discussing last time on his December 11th email. However, I'm also was parsing through it and the complexity of it based on going to town meeting, being a town meeting member, and those of you who are also members on the committee, you have to be able to explain something and sort of defend any request, obviously. Before FinCom too, you have to defend any request. You have to be able to parse through the language of it. Not that this can't be amended between now and May, just so you know, apparently amendments happen, right before town meeting. But that it seemed to me that, and I've seen town meetings spend an entire hour over like the and or the or. And it seemed to me like there were maybe too many moving pieces in this and too much uncertainty, and then somebody who was perhaps not so thrilled. Thank you for joining us, Janet. We're talking about the consultant article at this point. Just for the record, Janet is here as well.
Item 3.
Thank you. So anyways, it made me uncomfortable, and I felt like, if I and Laura are up there as town meeting members trying to, quite frankly, persuade town meeting that they should invest some money and adopt this, I just felt that it was more difficult language. So the more recent version I sent to folks this weekend acknowledges that we also may get grant monies from Massachusetts planning agencies, but that's, trying to be transparent and making sure the town understands that, but also putting a dollar figure on it, even though it still would be an up to dollar figure, so that people would be clear. I am authorizing, through the procurement process, a consultant to be hired to help this town that's going to cost up to $75,000. By the way, they may also get some other grant money, which would help them even do things more thoroughly. So those were my thoughts, and I want, obviously, everybody to get a chance to speak to this. I'll start with James and see what his thoughts are, but I really, I would say my concern is not, conceptually so much as making it simple enough for town meeting to feel like we're not doing something they can't quite understand or they can't quite pin down what we're doing. And as you can see from I've been talking for like 5 minutes, the whole thing is very complex. And we need to simplify it for town meeting. So James, what are your thoughts about the two different versions and also about the number?
My thoughts are this, Molly. My thoughts is that we should have a number factored in that we might need to include as a portion of a matching grant. I was thinking, I know it might seem excessive, but I think in the scope of things, it's not an unreasonable request, and town meeting would I believe they can be convinced that this is a valid expenditure. I was thinking along the lines of $150,000, which should cover the lower end of the Kleinfeld quote that you got, and give us $50,000 for, or up to $50,000 for matching grants, or a portion of which for matching grants, if we do the greenhouse gas study with Kleinfeld. I just think in the scope of things, in my experience and articles that I'm seeing, that it's not an unreasonable amount with respect to the scope of the important job and mission of this committee, that I know that people are being educated about on a daily basis in the media, and hopefully that trend will continue. So those are the thoughts I have regarding the article, that we should add a language that to use and or matching grants in addition to what is in the most recent draft.
So, I mean, I guess there's two parts to this. It's the language of the article, and it's also the dollar figure to put in. So I think you've made clear the dollar figure, you want to see $150,000. But the language, does it seem feasible to use the language in my version, which is clearly asking the town to commit to up to X dollars, but also, quite frankly, part of the X dollars they would commit to would be giving it, if we get an EEA grant, would be giving like maybe a $15,000 match back to EEA. So just to make it complicated further, but if I put in all these multi-steps, nobody's going to, so in other words, if we get a lump sum that we can use for planning, if EEA says we're willing to give you the grant, but you have to give us $12,000 to $15,000 in matching money and or services, then we know we have that money to play with, and we'll have an additional X dollars in addition to complete a thorough planning process. So is there, the language of my article, of my draft, does that work for you, James? If the dollar figure is a dollar figure you agree to?
I would say that we should include the provision of being able to use matching grants in the event that we qualify for a grant that requires matching grants, just as simply and or add and or also include a contribution towards a matching grant or, is what I would add. And then I'd advise increasing the amount, Molly, just to give us a comfort zone or, something that we know we won't exceed, but, we're not going to have a shortfall on.
Okay, so it seems like the language, when we get to the purpose of the money, that clause starts with to hire a consultant, but you would want to insert somewhere along those lines, and or to make a contribution, a required a match to a grant. I can't come up with the exact words, but in order to make a contribution toward a matching grant.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I think I understand that conceptually. I'm sorry, somebody have a question, or do we just want to move on clockwise?
I do have a question for James.
Aisha, you go ahead.
Okay, so James, my question is, if we already have all this breakdown from the client folder that we see, and then the FARS, we already have like a breakdown of what they think will be an actual or a realistic figure. From what perspective are you getting your figure?
From my experience with grants, the agencies are usually asking for some type of a match. If it doesn't include in-kind services, it might include a monetary amount. Depending on that amount that we can offer, it depends on how much money we can get or qualify for. It's the amount that we match generally may be proportional to what our award can be. So in my experience in grants, I'm not a grant writer, but I've been involved in some grants. The matching grant, there's money usually involved, services in kind or monetary contribution.
So that was a good question. Any follow-up, Aisha?
No, that's okay for now.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
I'm going to go clockwise through the people who are virtual, and then I'll circle back to the people who are in person, just to make sure everybody gets an opportunity. So Rachel, do you have comments both as to the wording of the proposed article and as to the amount?
No, I think the people who have been through town meeting have a better idea of this than me. I know Laura has her hand raised, so.
All right, so Laura, questions, comments, thoughts?
Thanks, Rachel. I just, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I want to take a little step back, and I know we had some conversation about this at a previous meeting, where I want us to be thinking about what the dollar amount at the end of the day we think we need to have in hand in order for us to obtain support from a consultant. And I want us to be clear about what we're asking town meeting for and what we think we may be able to supplement, if anything, from grants. And I want us to also think about what the risks are associated to our overall objective of obtaining support would be if we didn't get either one of those things. So if we're asking town meeting for a certain amount of money, what does that reflect in terms of what we actually need for a consultant? And what is it we're asking from a grant perspective and what would the risks to that be if we did not get that grant funding. And I just want us to be clear about what we're going to be able to accomplish, given the risks associated with getting either one of those things. So I'm not sure what that actually means in terms of asking for the monetary amount in this article. So if we have, proposals from a few different places, and we know that some are able to do X, Y, and Z for this amount, and other ones are able to do a little bit more or a little bit less for that amount. I just want to make sure that we're kind of bracketing ourselves in a way that's going to allow us to be successful. And if we're not able to be successful, we make those risks known when we have our time in front of town meeting. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is, my understanding from last year's EEA grant, which was a joint application with the town of Canton, was that it was a $50,000 grant with a $12,500 match that had to come from the town. So probably those proportions are not going to be radically different. Maybe the numbers are going to be a little higher. Maybe there'll be so many people asking for those grants. They're like, well, let's maybe do smaller grants because we have so many people who need, you know what I mean? I just don't know. And we also don't know what they're going to focus on or what they're going to be looking for. Maybe we'll fit their profile perfectly, and maybe somebody else will beat us out. So I'm trying to have it's like a safety net. So the safety net is we need to have some, considerable amounts of money if we have to hire a consultant completely on our own, with nothing but a little bit of MAPC, getting us off the ground and doing some community engagement. If we are fortunate and we get both the article and we get the EEA grant, I think that's where the up to comes into play. And I don't know whether, again, there's a way to and we would work through the procurement process, and we would, based on what we've seen here, we would be very specific about what the scope is. We may even be specific about referring to we like the elements of or the style of X plan and Y plan. As a committee, if we say, this plan is too short, this plan is too long, we're really looking for something that at least looks into and delves into and gives the analysis based on whatever. I do think we know I do feel certain finally that we are going to get the greenhouse gas inventory handed to us, and we don't have to pay for that. So that's a few $1,000s.
Right.
So
I guess my question is then, is the monetary amount of up to 75? So if we get 75 and nothing more than that, we just get what town meeting, what we're asking town meeting for, is that enough to accomplish what we're setting out to do?
I would say we have at least one quote that number's in the ballpark, right? So that's the Fuss and O'Neill. I don't think they're new to this game. I think they've done it in the past. Maybe that's why it was a little bit easier for them to come up with the quote. So I got the sense that they had experience with this. They had been down the path before. And then there's also some things, quite frankly, like the community engagement. We could do more heavy lifting and they could do less heavy lifting because they're going to charge their professional fees for community engagement. Not that that's not really important, and I want to do a lot of it. But it might be that, and if they had all the money in the world, they do 3 or 4 events and they may only do 1 or 2. And then we try to pick up the slack and we have a couple more events. So we feel like we're trying to reach everybody as much as we can.
No, that's helpful.
Yeah,
I know James has his hand raised.
Yes.
I think he wanted to make a comment.
Oh, I just want to remind everybody that the quote that Horsley and Witten gave me, the range was from, was up to $150,000. So,
Yep.
And that way it wouldn't limit us to, it would help broaden the arena for whoever we could look for, because we're going to get quotes on this. We're going to have to go with the lowest bidder, of course, but we'll attract more consultants for one thing if we set the range of what the money we have available, the ceiling, should I say, or
I that's probably absolutely true. Right.
I just wanted to mention that. Again,
Right.
that's the reason why I went with $150,000
Right.
figure.
And All right, so Michael, looks like Michael has something to say.
Yeah, question, Jim, along those lines.
Push your button. Are you on the
Yes.
mic? Okay.
Good. You said Horsley Witten submitted a proposal for up to 150K,
Right.
and we're looking, for example, also at the Fuss proposal, which was at about 62K, which is a pretty big difference. In a nutshell, can you tell me what the advantages would be of the 2 to almost 3 times as expensive plan or proposal?
I think you get what you pay for, Michael, actually. The Horsley and Witten has the experience in the field. They have a good reputation. I'm not very familiar with the other consultant with the lower end, but I know Kleinfelter is also very reputable, and I had the opportunity to speak to some folks from Kleinfelter at the most recent FEMA meeting at Holy Cross College. So I think they would be a good choice as well, or as someone along the line of Horsley and Witten Group who has already done some work in the town concerning our open space and recreation plan and our master plan for that matter. So I guess the price of this is surprising, but they gave this to me on the fly, but I'd still like to, have an open mind towards considering going with Horsley and Witten, if this committee feels comfortable and they think they're our best bet.
Can I answer that?
They give us a competitive bid also.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Isha, did you have something to say? Because I'm looking at the documents right now.
Yes, so I was going to ask that we find some middle ground between the risk assessment of going with either Winfield or Foss or Kleinfeld with respect to the job that is at hand. So when we have that risk assessment done, we can then determine. So regardless of the fact that we want to go with something that is a little bit reasonable in terms of costs, we have to be realistic. I think that's what Lauren was trying to say, that we just have to accept the fact that realistically, this is how much we can afford. One. And then once we establish the fact that this is how much we can afford, we still have to be able to tell the town community, even if we can afford this, what if it doesn't go as planned? We still have to be able to put that clause in there to say, with this, even if we don't get this done with this, what will be our way of, what's be like our safety nets? Lauren, I don't know if I'm speaking your mind with respect to this planning that we're having, because we can have all the plan, and then while we'll start going, when execution starts, of course, we know how things go. Cost of things change, other factors could come in. And that's why I believe we could have like a middle ground, like between the 150 and the 62. I mean, that's where I would.
Right.
I would.
And I'm looking at the two elements from Witten Horsley versus elements I'm seeing from the Fuss and O'Neill much lower cost plan. So Fuss and O'Neill says they won't do greenhouse gas, and that's fine. We don't need that. But they also say we do not include a vulnerability assessment, since our conversation suggests that there's already vulnerability adaptation studies. And to a certain extent, that's true, because I know that I've seen those. But just bear that in mind. And then with the higher cost, something I'm seeing here, which maybe isn't in the other quotes, so looking at Witten Horsley, element 3, or 4 actually, they say they would include developing strategies with municipal departments officials and creating a mechanism such as a dashboard to track indicators and measure progress with public engagement, about $50,000. That's your implementation right there. So as James said, you do get what you pay for. It may be that we could go back somebody, the Sustainability Committee, the Select Board themselves could go back and pay for a consultant to do implementation in future. But I think that is maybe one distinction, which explains why Witten Horsley does have a higher cost. And unfortunately, as explained, we can't go negotiate with town meeting. We can't say, well, we got 150 and we got 120, we got 75. What do you guys want to do? We just it's like an up or down vote, So that's the challenges.
And that was my point, right, is we need to go in and ask for what we have decided that we need, right? And whatever we decide we need is made up of all of these different pieces. I think that is what we need to figure out and do our best at balancing what it is that we need for this to be successful and being fiscally responsible for the town. And I think Aisha said it well, where there's somewhere in between either the proposal, the dollar value of these proposals, or going through it almost like an a la carte menu of saying, okay, the greenhouse gas assessment, we know that's taken off the table. Maybe the dashboard isn't something that is a must-have, but it's a nice to have. So if we're, balancing what we're tasked to do with the fiscal responsibility, we come up with a core selection of those menu items and identify what we think is really going to be feasible to do that.
And again, just bearing in mind the time frame, I understand from conversations with the select board that we really want to get them something that we've approved, like by the end of this week, because they would need to insert it by like February 4th or something like that. And they may run it by council and they may want to tweak it and whatever. And if it gets tweaked significantly, we could come back and look at it again and say that we still support this. And then people sometimes go to town meeting and then weeks before town meeting, they come up with an amendment. I don't know what the rules are on that, but we've seen that too. We've seen further amendments. But certainly
Right.
we want to have a sense. So
To your earlier point, Molly, just one last comment is, if we're bringing this to town meeting, we need to be able to show our work, right? We need to be able to show where that number came from and what the town is going to be getting for that number. It's up to us to decide what that number is, and we can do our own kind of analysis or figure out what those core pieces are. I just want us to have it be by design and being able to describe what it is and why we think that that is the number.
right, and the only X factor being the unknown swing of perhaps $50,000 with the EEA grant, which we can't control that's going to be unknown for many months. Michael had a comment?
Yeah, I'm less optimistic about town meeting giving us whatever we want based on our own, no matter how forcefully we present our ideas. Has nothing really to do with the subject or with the makeup of town meeting, but I have found town meeting to be wildly unpredictable in the past. And as I sort of said last week, for that reason, I tend to lean low end. I don't necessarily know that we need to be somewhere in the middle unless, in fact, we determine that it is only somewhere in the middle that gets us the essentials of what we need, and that the incrementals can, maybe come down the road. So I guess, Michael, if I can just throw something out there, if you look at the, the very low end plan, the FUS plan, which I think came in at 73, but possibly 62 if you take out the town meeting hosting business and all. I would start with that and just say, what's not on there that we need? What's missing from that particular plan? What don't you like?
Can I say something?
Yeah, that's an open question. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Michael. If I may ask James, because we have clearly pointed out the fact that the differential between all the costs that we've seen from Winston to FUS to Klein, it's really, the difference is really wide, and we're trying to narrow it in the middle. Again, I will put my facts down and then put it on paper to justify the reason why those costs will be effective for us to move this plan forward if I'm approaching town meeting. And then also give them a justifiable cost. Like James has clearly said that this is a reputable company we're talking about, and they have been vetted to, do this in the past. Just like Molly has clearly stated out, is it possible, James, that we can go back and say, hey, the dashboard is a very nice, cool, needed, it's an idea that we welcome, but it's not a must-have right now. If we decide to take that off this plan, we will have a very good adjustable amount that will be similar to that of Client-Forward. So that will not be something for us to argue about. But I still want us to put this into consideration. We have to do a risk assessment. Don't forget, this is the town that we all reside in, and we're trying to make the best plan for this town to move forward. We don't just make the decisions based on the numbers that we see. We make the decision based on what we think and know that this plan needs in order for this plan to have, a better future. So that's my one take. So James, if we could take that out of the table, if there's anything we could do between now and then for us to be able to come to a reasonable conclusion, because we have to put this in, right, Molly? We have to.
I think we need a vote today, and I think we need a vote with a number. And again, I'm happy to talk with the select board as the months ensue between now and town meeting, if that number gets adjusted. Maybe we talk to EEA and they say, well, you're highly likely to get a grant. And maybe they say, well, we've reduced the grants this year because so many people are applying. We might get a lot of information between now and but I think it's more like we're trying to develop something to proceed with in principle. And then in principle, once it gets inserted in the warrant, then there certainly is going to be a meeting before FinCom where we're going to have to discuss not just the substance, but the dollar figure and how we came up with that. And I do feel like we've done our due diligence. We have 3 decent quotes. So that we're not, and again, at the end of the day, whoever's going to get picked is a matter for procurement to go through that process, and it might be a entirely different engineering company who's reputable, who bids for it and ends up getting it. We're not going to have any control over that. We can maybe have some input into what the bid says, to the extent that's appropriate. So I do think we've had actually a great discussion. We've sort of dug into the different elements of the different plans. I don't know if people want to continue this and James is right, you do get what you pay for, but the question is what is going to be acceptable to town meeting and FinCom. Bearing in mind that—
Janet has your hand raised, Molly, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody had their hand raised?
Janet does.
Oh, Janet, sorry. Yes, we have not heard from you, Janet. What are your thoughts about, and you need to take yourself off mute, what are your thoughts about the article and the amount that we might be asking town meeting for?
Hold on. Okay. Well, I had to really listen because I missed the last meeting. So, and for some reason, I don't have those quotes in front of me, but I've been listening a lot to what you're saying about each one of them. I'm wondering, there's a couple of questions I have actually. I mean, when you get a consultant, is it for a certain time frame? Like, is it for a year, or is it? What? And also, I think we shouldn't go too low. It's kind of like when you go for a job, you don't go too low, but you don't go too high. You just kind of have to be somewhere. You have to know what you need. And you want the minimum, but you want to make sure that you're getting, as much as you want done. Is this like for a first year? I mean, what is this time frame we're talking about as far as getting things done? I don't know if this is something we'll ever do again, or if it's just like right to get started, because this is a new committee, we're doing a new thing, and I don't know how that works with the town or just in general. So I just know, and we need to have our priorities about what we want to get done right from the get-go, I think. I don't know if we decided on that. I know we were going to have a meeting where we were all talking about what our priorities were, but I don't know what happened with that. So those are just my thoughts. But I definitely think we should get a decision made ASAP. So,
Right.
Because, like you said, the meeting is coming up. So.
Right, and thank you. And I think the consultant would be working with us for like 10 months because the report would be due next May or June, so 10 to 12 months, depending on how quickly it all happens.
Right. So we need to know what our priorities are as far as what we want done, and maybe what order, sort of, or like,
I don't, well, I mean.
But that's not, doesn't have to do with the consultant so much, but we have to have that in our head as far as what we want from them. And I just think the one on the low end is, I don't think you should go too low. I mean, I know James is probably going to say something like, well, we can get someone else later, I guess, to add on. He's shaking his head about something. So,
I agree with you, Janet. I think that is just the quote from Fando, not Fuss O'Neill. It seems as though they're just acting to get us, to consult this board to get us on the right track, is what I'm thinking, more than giving us solid deliverables. So that's why one of the reasons I don't like that quote.
is that the low one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. I don't know why I don't have that. I'm trying to find it in my emails unless you got it elsewhere.
It's December 31st email.
7?
29th, sorry. Another thing,
Sorry. Yeah.
I didn't like that is that they're kind of like getting Kathy Stanley involved and getting a commitment for her. How do we know that Kathy is going to be able to work with them and provide them everything they need to give us what they're asking, what they're telling us in this quote?
Right.
Work with Kathy, our consultant, to develop this facet of this contract. So I probably want her feedback also before we got involved in anything like that. I don't know how far she is in being able to help us or to help them. That one looks a little bit weak to me.
Is that for you talking about the Fuss and O'Neill quote?
The Fando. Is Fando Fuss O'Neill? I thought it was Fando.
It's Diane Moss from Fuss and O'Neill, and that's the one that has the, $73,000.
Okay, all right, got it. The email I'm saying it says fando.com, and I have heard of Fando.
Fando is F&O, which should probably be Foss and O'Neill.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Yeah, I mean, anybody's going to consult with Kathy Stanley to a certain extent, just as a preliminary matter, and see what she's done, what information she has, what her thoughts are, and then take it from there and develop a more robust with her. So I think, part of this is, we do have a range that's actually, when you take off the dashboard part from Witten Horsley, they said that's $50,000. So that puts them not too far out of sight of what the Kleinfelder quote was of $92,000.
And Molly, Rachel has had her hand raised
Thank you.
for some time. I just want to make sure she's able to be heard.
Thanks, Rachel.
It does seem like we don't want everything in the Kleinfelter range. So asking for, I would say, I'm with James in that I want to ask for a lot of money, but I haven't been through like the town meeting financial discussions before. So I don't have an expert opinion on whether we should ask for more or try to make a number look really good. But it does seem like we could ask for less than what the top number that we've been given and still be within a top range, like with it, not giving up any or not sacrificing the ability to get a top dollar thing, but not paying exactly what they want. Are we going to be the ones negotiating with the consulting firm on what we do it, or is the town going to do that? That I'm a little unclear, because it does seem like we can see what we want and like select off the buffet of options. So
I would think we would work with the town procurement officer, Fran, with respect to how you would phrase the bid that we would be seeking a quote for. But we're not going to be, quote, negotiating back and forth with the consultants, I don't think. And so I think
and people do trim their bids to be competitive if they know that they're being competitive, which James indicated that he didn't think that the Kager, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names, was making a competitive bid at the time. So maybe if they were doing a competitive bid, they might come in lower.
Okay.
So, and especially if we're not asking for everything that they can do.
All right.
So I would say ask for a high end, but not as high as they asked, is where I would put my money, or my money asked.
All right, so that's effectively what you said. So, Michael, do you have anything to say? And then I'm probably going to entertain a motion because we're almost an hour in and we have a lot more on the agenda.
Just for clarification's sake then, before we get into a motion with a specific number, I don't have everything in front of me. If Molly or Jim in particular could just tell me or tell everybody what the, let's say what the low, if we lop off anything we don't need, greenhouse gas survey, possibly dashboard. I love the idea of the dashboard, but may not be essential at this point. You know, you don't want that to be our make or break. If you lop off any of the non-essentials, where then do each of these, 3 are we talking about?
3, we have 3.
Where do each of, what's the number we'd associate with each of these 3?
Okay, the Fuss and O'Neill, which does not have anything beyond, because they do not have the greenhouse gas inventory, that's 62 to 73,000. The Kleinfelder was 92,000.
Okay.
And then the Witten Horsley would be 100,000 to pull off their dashboard, would be 100,000. If they exclude the
I see.
dashboard,
Oh,
the
okay.
the Witten Horsley is at 100,000.
Okay, and one more question for basically everybody, but particularly Jim. But everybody who's taken a good look at these, are there any of them, and you know, I know we're not voting on a particular proposal tonight, we're just voting on a dollar amount, but do any of these proposals and/or the reputation of the company or anything else tend to have you leaning in favor of any of them?
Well, yes, I lean in favor of Horsley and Witten. I think it's crucial that we get the baseline data necessary through the greenhouse gas inventory and energy audit. And then, you know, maybe that price can come down, you know, like you say, if it's more competitive, like Rachel had indicated. But all those companies are good companies.
Okay.
And you know, I don't have any problem with any of them. I think any of them would be a good choice. I'd just like to get the most I can out of them to help us with our plan. So, you know, we're not going to end up spending more money next year.
Right, okay. Does anybody want to make a motion? I guess we have 2 different motions. Motion number 1 is, I think, if you were to look at my wording of the draft article I sent you with the blank dollar figure this weekend, and James has suggested that we added into it, you know, the funds to hire a consultant, and then I'd have to figure out where that clause goes, or contribution toward a matching grant. So does anybody want to make a motion with respect to adopting that version of the language that we made motion number 1, and then motion number 2 would be the dollar figure?
I'll make that motion.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of adopting the language from the consultant article I prepared, adding in reference to a contribution toward a matching grant? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries, and then I would entertain a motion with respect to the dollar figure to put in the grant. And again, I just want to say I appreciate everybody's viewpoint. It's been a very good deliberative process.
Molly, do you have a proposal of what that dollar figure is? That we could support in a motion?
I can propose $75,000 as, it's an up to amount.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on the $75,000 that's been proposed in a motion? All right, all in favor?
What was that?
So the motion was that the dollar figure to go in here would be up to $75,000.
So we don't want to go higher at all.
Well, we don't know whether we would get any further grant monies on top of that, so that's the unknown swing, one way or the other. So, and Michael seconded that motion. Any further discussion before we vote on that
James
motion?
has his hand up.
James, yes.
Should we go along with what we discussed earlier and try to at least have enough money to go towards the middle of the road with respect to the 3 quotes we have?
I think you should go a little higher. I don't know why. I mean, maybe not 100 and something, but
I would like to hear what James thinks is a good number.
I was going to say $125,000, but maybe less than that would be enough to cover the Kleinfelter quote with all the services they're proposing, at least, and maybe that might bring Horsley and Witten down if they are where it's a competitive process.
And then also with the potential of getting it, having this money and looking for matching grants if we decide that we really need something that is more than 125, or if it, so it's yay or nay on 125, we can't change that ask once we make it? Okay.
I mean, is it possible the town will come back and say, yes, we'll give you money, but not 125? They'll come back with
There'd
some
have to
more.
be a motion before town meeting to amend the article, and I'm not an expert on those rules. We certainly would confer ahead of time. I just want to clarify, so the EEA grant is not a matching grant. Just to clarify, that's, and it's confusing. So the EEA grant that we would apply for is going to be a set dollar figure. It's not going to be a matching grant of what we as a town agree to put into it. But the EEA grant, should we get it, will require us to match a percentage of what they give us. So say they would give us 50,000, they might say you have to match 10 or 15 or 20% of that. We don't know, because we don't know this year's EEA grant. So it's really, this is really our safety net if we don't get the EEA grant. If we get it, we certainly could do more, including, you know, more of the implementation, strategically get that ready to launch.
When
But
would you be able to ask for more money if you asked for 75? I mean, like when, it wouldn't be till next year probably, right? They wouldn't.
Right.
yes,
So
that's,
I think you need to go a little higher. You need to go a little higher. I mean, I don't know how much higher.
So Janet, so Laura shook her head at your question and she's on FineCom, so I'm guessing Laura's right on this, that.
What happened? What did Laura shake her head about?
okay, so
Yeah.
just to clarify, so Laura, could you respond to what the comment was about asking for more money?
I don't think you can.
Well, no, I mean, I think that asking for more money needs to be done as an amendment to the article, which isn't done on the fly. Typically, that's something that needs to be
Yeah.
submitted ahead of time. I mean,
That's why you should ask for more to start with.
Yeah.
well, and that was my original comment in the first place was, you know, this idea of balancing everything. I certainly don't want to over ask of the town, but I also don't want us to tie our hands and not be able to do anything if we don't ask for enough money, which is what I thought we were doing through this kind of conversation of the three different groups.
So Lauren, can I ask you a question? If I ask you to pick a dollar amount, what would your proposal be? At least Molly gave us 75. What would your proposal be?
More.
I would say maximum 100K. I would not ask for more than that. I just don't see, unless we had like very clear itemized list of exactly what we're going to get in like certain terms. That is just, that's where I'm thinking.
All right, so we have a motion on the table. We just need to vote on that motion, and if it doesn't succeed, we will entertain a second motion. So just to clarify, I think we've already adopted a motion about the language. A motion was made with respect to the sum of money to be up to $75,000. Michael seconded that. I think I just want to go one at a time to get people's votes, so it's very clear. So I'm going to start with Aisha next to me. For the 75.
I will vote a no.
Okay, I will, Janet, could you tell us your vote on the 75?
No.
James?
Was that a no?
No.
Okay.
I vote in the nay.
I couldn't hear you, James, I'm sorry.
I vote in the nay.
Nay, okay, Rachel?
Voting no on this means we're going to 100.
Laura?
I would vote no on 75.
Yeah, so
Okay.
no on 75.
And Michael, did I get your vote yet?
Yes.
Yes, so Michael would vote yes, and I would vote yes. Okay, so the motion fails. So I would entertain a motion, and I don't know who wants to make a motion with respect to a different dollar figure.
I would like to make a motion that the dollar figure included in this article be up to 100,000.
Can you say up to instead of, or not a definite amount? Is it that?
I would say up to, because again, similar to what the 75 was,
Right.
is up to 75, that at least gives us the leverage to say, okay, if all things come in and it costs less, then maybe we don't need as much. I don't want us to ask for things that we don't absolutely need. So
Okay.
my proposal or my motion is to include the value of 100K in the article.
All right, can I just get a second, and then I'm going to go around for discussion? Is anybody going to second
I
the
will
motion?
second that.
I second.
So we have a couple of seconds, Aisha and Rachel. So let me just slow down here because Michael's taking notes very carefully. I appreciate that. Michael, do you have comments on that motion?
Yeah, when we're in front of town meeting, this business about asking about monies up to a certain amount, we're basically asking for that amount, right? They're not approving 50,000 or 60 if that's what we settle on. We're asking for, and they're approving the outer limit.
And I presume the quote would go out that way?
Yeah,
Right.
that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
The up
that's
to-
my fear when
in
you
fact,
say.
I would even change that in the article. Sufficient sum of money up to, I would just say, whatever the number we're asking
100K.
for, that's what we're asking for.
That's standard language in the article, Michael. and
Oh, it is?
All right,
Oh.
fine.
Yeah, I think that sounds normal. And then it's also, if what we need ends up being less, then we turn that money back.
Okay.
All right, so we now have a new motion on the table, and it has been seconded. So I'm going to go around the room, starting with Aisha, and circle around. I'll circle around virtually to get a vote on the motion to insert the figure of $100,000.
I support, yes.
Yes?
Yes, Janet.
Jim?
Janet,
Janet's yes, or yay, whatever you want to call it.
James said yes. Rachel?
Yay.
Laura?
Yeah.
slow down.
Slow down. I've got
Aisha,
Aisha, Janet,
James,
Lauren, Jim, and
Rachel.
Wait, Jim didn't vote yet. James didn't vote yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you voted, James.
I'll vote in the yay.
Okay. I voted in the yay. Michael, I think you're the last vote.
no,
So Michael's going to vote nay.
I'm missing somebody.
Oh, okay.
Rachel.
Janet, James, Rachel, Laura.
Rachel is a yes?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
I think
So-
we have to think positive. We have to be optimistic. you
And
know,
so,
just-
you're, just so for the record, so your vote, Michael? Your vote was yay, or
No.
your vote is nay? Okay, so it is, so with one nay, the motion does carry. So we can now present to the select board with that dollar figure. Again, I'll work in that language about the contribution toward a matching grant, and we have spent an hour on this issue. I really thank everybody for their thoughts and deliberations, and I think we need to move on at a more rapid pace to get through the rest of our meeting items, and I'll be glad to take it. Is everybody ready to move on?
games
Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay.
All right. Meeting with town manager. I'm trying to remember who was with me when we met with the town manager.
It was me and Rachel.
Thank you.
Oh, no, it wasn't me. I was superintendent.
That's
Forget
right,
it.
okay.
Yeah, no, I was in the meeting with the town manager.
That's right, it was a virtual meeting. That's
Yeah.
why it was so hard. Okay, my takeaway from the meeting, and I can't remember whether I sent you information about that. My takeaway, a couple of points that were really outstanding. Clearly he's, I would say, supportive and open-minded and wants to be helpful with respect to these issues. He did say with respect to the plan, he made a good point about try to get a plan with specifics. And that
Yeah.
matches, I think Laura was talking about, tailored to our town, like tailored to
Yes.
what's going on, tailored to the buildings, tailored to the issues with the town. So I really want that to resonate with us when we work together and work with the consultant. He specifically mentioned the railroad station building, that cute little old building.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know, he made it sound like, they were just going to fix up the boiler and open it up. And he was like, no, we need to put in new windows. We need to update, we need to put in energy efficient measures and think through how we're going to use it. So that was a really good takeaway. The other one is about messaging. Messaging meaning the whole point is not just to get the town to take the actions that it can take, leading by example, but also to engage with town residents about actions they can take to lower their carbon footprint and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And so he said that we can, obviously this would go through him and Trish Shropshire, we could have things posted on there's like town little TV screens in multiple town buildings. He also talked about the DPW has a sign right there in the streets. And also he said SMAC, like you can contact SMAC, they'll run information along the line. So I think I would love to entertain for next meeting proposed messages, and the message might just be, 2024 is a great year to explore getting a heat pump for your home. To contact, look at mass.gov, whatever it might be, or to start to recycle or to start composting, whatever message. And maybe each month or every 2 months we do a different message, but I really think that could be very effective. I know I'm going a mile a minute here, but I also did think about, and I think generally messaging, we as a committee need to think about messaging somebody had indicated, actually not this committee, about, it's all about, getting people's attention, and sometimes people need to hear a message multiple times before, they would take action. It would motivate them, but it's also about, engaging with them in a way that's meaningful to them. But I thought we need, for example, when we have our community engagement events and we have our messaging, we have our flyers, we're going to need a slogan, and a slogan that came to mind for the committee and what we're trying to achieve. The words renew Stoughton or renewing Stoughton, and maybe with some tagline after that is something that I've thought about. Of course, it's all about renewable energy, and also about sort of turning the page to, the fossil-free society that we are hoping to have over the next several years. So that's an idea that's thrown out. I would maybe put messaging on for our next agenda. Anybody who's good at majored in marketing or took a marketing course. I mean, marketing is a lot. And, we need to market, in a way that's welcoming to town residents and to town officials about what we're all engaged in. So hopefully there will be more meetings with the town manager, including in-person meetings, so let's definitely plan for that. School engagement is an ongoing activity. I think we talked last time about our meeting with the superintendent. I think, sorry, Aisha?
I do have a question.
Yes.
The question is that like a tax to be considered, the slogan? Or is that something that you already got figured out?
No, that's just something for us to consider. And so I think I'll put it on, a slogan, messaging. We already have a great logo. Thank you to our designer. And I think it's very colorful. I think it's beautiful, the logo with the different colors in it. And, we'll use that on flyers as much as we can. But I think sort of a tagline, a slogan, so it tells people, what are we up to and what's our messaging? And like I say, let's have that on the agenda and let's come up with different ideas so that we can, market our thoughts and our hopes for the town, quite frankly. It's our hopes for the town that we hope that we can get some traction with those ideas.
I was thinking we could be like either in parades or there's bumper stickers. I don't know if people do bumper stickers anymore. I don't see as many, but just different ways of, advertising, in big ways and also very little ways, just here and there,
I agree. That's great. Those are good ideas. So let's bring all those to the table and sort of have a unified voice with respect to our messaging. I think would be helpful.
Just be at events, that exist. I think we've already done a couple, but
right.
Just continue.
Yeah, I mean, every single town event we need to go to. So whether it's for example, last summer there was the Pride event, there was a Juneteenth event.
Right.
Even church fairs and things of that nature where they have, the YMCA has an event in the fall. You can
Right.
do tabling there, and again, it's about outreach and tabling, which gets to, I'll get back to the tabling at the Y in a minute. I just want to wrap up school engagement. So we want to continue to be engaged with the schools, and I was inviting anybody who are parents on the committee to see if they could write to the principals and get contact information from the PTOs, both for purposes of, you know, maybe sending our survey in case they haven't gotten that, or sending information about a community engagement event, but maybe also scheduling, showing up at a meeting. One of the consultants I spoke to, I think one of the ones who was so busy she couldn't entertain giving us a quote, said, you got to go to their events. So it's like if some other, whether it's the Rotary Club or the Lions Club or the PTO, like we, and obviously there's several of us, we got to go to their events and say, oh, can we talk to your meeting for 3 or 5 minutes? Can we hand out a couple of flyers? So I think that's probably really, really good advice. And actually, Michael gave me a great list of community organizations. I have written to all of them that had an email to forward and attach the survey. I haven't really heard back from them. In a couple of them, I had to go onto a website and try to send an email that way, and so I'm not sure whether that got any traction. And with some of those more important organizations, we might try to talk around to see if we can just really get a person's name and their email or their telephone number.
Tough time of year, too.
That's true. It was right during the holidays when I did
They're
that.
going to parties, the churches are all busy with their,
Yep.
you know, religious events, et cetera, so.
Yeah.
Trying to get
Network.
come January when I think people are a little bit more attuned now and a little more responsive.
Right, and then follow
The
up.
Martin Luther King Day events.
Sorry?
Martin Luther King, you're right.
It's next weekend, so.
Right.
That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
There anything
And
going on
I
there?
will, yes, Michael? Oh, I'm sorry. She said there's Martin Luther King Day events in town. There's actually 2 different events. And one, if you're at the Y, you can see there's an advertisement for the one that is sponsored by the town. And I know that Joseph Feaster is involved in that, and he's been a prominent person in town for many, many years. And I think the Stoughton Diversity and Inclusion Organization, which is a 501c3 in town, is doing something different, which I have inside information. I just don't know what it is. If I find out about it, I'll shoot everybody an email. But even to just to show up for an hour with some flyers and introduce ourselves, thank you for that reminder, Rachel. And I'll just send that information around if anybody wants to do that or is available to do that. Definitely want to be present for those. So I think I've segued into general community engagement, which is item number 6 on the agenda. So the survey, with respect to the survey, so I do have the hard copies. Thank you, James. I know that Janet has volunteered to maybe do some tabling at the Y, because I wanted to just post our survey, and our friend at the Y, Ellen Green, said, well, why don't you come table? I was like, well, that's even much better. So we'll work on a date for that, Janet, which maybe you'll cover a couple of hours and I'll cover a couple of hours.
Sure. I'm there to exercise, so yeah.
There you
sure.
go. That's great. And again, we'll really get a flow of people. You just have to make sure you ask them if they're from Stoughton, because obviously people from other towns are there as well.
Right.
The big question and the big question mark, I guess, is trying to do some kind of community forum, which we've talked about before. I think we're probably now talking about the end of February, doing something on a Saturday. I actually went to the library and they have some available dates, but I wanted to touch base with the committee as to when multiple people might be available on a Saturday in February. And then once we pick a date, then we have to brainstorm what's actually going to happen, which maybe involves some deep searching at some of the climate action plans we've already looked at. Some of them have details. It might involve telephone calls to some of the sustainability coordinators to ask what they may have done, or maybe just brainstorming. You know, I don't tend to do community engagement. I've been to a couple of those in my life. Maybe people have a great idea as how to structure that. So I think we definitely have to put that at the forefront of our agenda. Does anybody have any ideas of weekends in February that are good or bad for them? Or maybe just send me an email if that works better, if you want to just really take a look at your calendar for Saturday. I mean, some people might be going away for school vacation week. if I get a sense of a date, then I can go back to the library and try to book the community room, which I'm happy to say there is an opening for that at this point in time. And also, you may want to book your day. The Sustainability Committee is going to do an Earth Day event on Saturday, April 20th at the library, and that is booked. Obviously, we would want to participate in that because that is our sister organization, and we would certainly want to be a presence there. And I think the focus is maybe going to be about sustainable landscaping and things people can do that either move the dial in the right direction or the wrong direction with respect to how you take care of your property. So that's a work in progress with the Sustainability Committee, but that's going to be like the Saturday before Earth Day, which I think is that Monday. Related to that, and I'm going very quickly here, and then we'll slow down, we get to interim recommendations, then on item 8 and 9. But Nathan from the Sustainability Committee and I are going to be meeting at IKEA on Friday. We have had a Teams meeting with IKEA's representative, and she may have said the IKEA Foundation. They definitely characterize themselves as a very forward-thinking, environmentally friendly, sustainable company. They told me they have EV chargers, solar panel canopy at their property. Their restaurant is very much into composting and working on plant-based food products and everything. So we're going to go to IKEA, and quite frankly, we're looking for support. We're looking for I think it's pretty clear they're not going to write us a $75,000 check, but if they could have support for events or whatever it may be, please, anybody actually send me any ideas that they might have or share any ideas. But amongst the things I've thought of are clearly, if we're going to be making flyers a lot, would they like to help produce some flyers? Would they like to help have a professional web page that we could have that would be, very up-to-date and useful and interactive? Would they like to sponsor events if we have community engagement? Would they like to furnish the food for the events or the refreshments?
I think sponsoring events is definitely a good ask. You can also check what kinds of things they've done in the past, so you can point out like, well, you did this for X store, or X community.
Right. So they basically said they're looking for groups to partner within the community on this issue. So that's us, and that's the Sustainability Committee. So I'm optimistic that that could be a real step forward for, creating change in the town. We'll let you know what happens there. So interim recommendations, the reason I brought this back, even though I'm sorry this is a very crowded agenda and everybody's exhausted already, is because of item number 9. And maybe I should just have James talk about item number 9, is that there's an annual report, which our insert to that is already due this Friday, right? Is that the report that is delivered at the time of town meeting?
Oh. Yeah, yes, the town manager would like something Friday, and I did receive your email and I looked it over. It looks very nice. What I'm thinking is that we should put it in paragraph form, and I'd be happy to do that if you'd like me to, unless you'd like to do it, Molly. And then I could turn it over to Mark and Tom ultimately.
All right, so here's my question. Is this internally for the town manager, or is this the committee report that oftentimes is found in that big, thick packet that goes to town meeting where many committees?
That's what I thought it would be.
Yes.
It is, okay, so that's why I put like a sort of,
A bullet form?
yeah, well, that's why I put the encouraging residents to, contact Mass Save, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because I thought, wow, here's an opportunity for us to get a message to maybe 120 town meeting members. If they're at town meeting and if they're bored and they happen to turn to our page in the appendix, they might say, oh, they're actually giving me some concrete potential action steps that I could take, right? That's the whole point of this. So that's why I put that in there. But I also thought, and I'm fine with however you change the format, James, but I also thought that because this is going to be seen by the by town meeting members at the time of spring town meeting, which is like 11 months or 10 months since we've been meeting, that we should include our interim recommendations So that's why I went back to pulling those out, which we have talked about, and hopefully I got people's edits correct from last time. So first of all, let me ask, does that make sense? If you've seen the draft, so now I'm sort of mixing number 8 and 9 on the agenda. So number 9 is the annual report, which is going to be included in that town meeting package. So I would call that a potentially very influential document and important. So if people have taken a look at what I drafted, let me just give people a moment. Any comments about the way I worded things, about anything else they think should be in there, about anything they think shouldn't be in there? And does anybody have any hands up? Aisha? Michael? Okay, Michael?
Yeah, just a couple of
Yeah.
short. When you say met with the superintendent, I would add superintendent of schools or whatever the official.
Thank
rather than
you.
just superintendent.
Good point.
Spoken with engineering firms who provide consulting services. Do we want to go any further? Make that any stronger? Engage in extensive discussions or reviewed proposals. Spoken with is kind of, maybe you had a phone call. You've done a lot more work than that.
Maybe what you spoke
fact,
about
we
a
all
little
have.
bit.
I agree. I like your wording much better. Engaged with and reviewed proposals from. Right. Very good. Action words. A little more. And yes, it has been extensive. There have been 4 different engineering firms I've been talking to, and we have really gone through a fine-tooth comb, frankly, with these written scope of work, proposals we've gotten. So thank you.
Yeah, I think we want to make that point. One other.
Okay.
Just one other point on the interim. We talked about interim recommendations as well.
Well, actually, does anybody have any comments about, before we get to interim recommendations and rolling this in, does anybody have any comments on the wording or improving the wording of this 2024 annual report?
Yes.
I don't think we should include the interim recommendations in the report. I just don't think we're ready to do that.
I mean, there are some that we've really worked on, but also for the encouraging residents, we should include a link to signing up for compost in the town, since you can do that right now. And I'd rather give a link to something in Stoughton than to link to Mass Save. Even though I'm using Mass Save right now, it's just it's a town thing. We should link to town sources that we have, town resources.
Can I ask you what you mean, a link to sign up for compost? What is that?
There is a thing on DPW somewhere. I found it previous. Let me go find it in the master list. But there is actually a thing in Stoughton about composting.
But that they would pick it up?
And rain barrels.
Correct.
Rainbows, yeah.
Yes, we did.
One of the things we should do is to update it, but, and I can share it if you can't see.
I know what you mean. So the reference would be to, to the DPW link, which discusses composting and rain barrels. So start with something local. That's your
Yes, so,
suggestion?
It would be nice if they had a kind of website on it, but the engineering office has rain barrels
Okay.
and water conservation, soil conservation. So,
It's the same program.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
People don't know about this. When we were talking about whether or not we should do composting or rain barrels, you were the only one in the committee who knew about this, so we should advertise it.
Yeah.
Excellent point.
This is the thing, so if we could do a better job and post it any way we can, Rachel, it's the best thing we could possibly do, because I've mentioned it before and it hasn't gone anywhere.
Okay, so I will add that language with James, and I will do the final version of that, but we will add that language, and that's a great proposal, Rachel. Anything else,
Can I
Rachel?
add a few things?
Yes, Laura's going to add, yes? Comments?
So I want to build off Michael's point about some of these things. I think we could be a little bit more specific. It's one thing to talk to someone, but it's another thing to be specific about what you talked about. So I agree with adding superintendent of schools and appeared before the school committee, but I feel like, for example, that conversation with the superintendent, we walked away with some actionable things or some next steps that we don't have to be super specific about what those were, but it's one thing to meet with the superintendent, but we actually talked about a number of different issues associated with the willingness and capability of the schools to implement a bunch of things that he has already implemented. So we might want to be a little bit more specific about that. Likewise, we could be more specific about, we didn't just connect with the high school recycling club, but we heard from them about some gaps in the schools. We invited them to one of our meetings. So I think just adding a little bit more specificity about some of these things would be much more impactful rather than making it sound like we just sent some emails to some people. Also, I would add to the bulleted list that we researched grant funding options. We don't have anything in there, and you've done, actually multiple people on the committee have done a significant amount of work in looking into this, and that's part of our due diligence as balancing out funding from the town as funding that we get from the state and other groups. So I think those would all strengthen the great work that everyone's been doing.
Question. So Mike, you should ask a really good question. James might know. This could spill over more than one page, right, James? It could be 2 pages?
I don't see why not.
Okay, so bearing that in mind, and Laura, I appreciate your substantive comments, and you're right, I think we need to be more specific and more robust in discussing what we've done, which, by the way, the last time, a month ago, the Canton Committee had met once. So,
right.
Just to put it in perspective, we're doing the best we can as quickly as we can. All right, so research grant funding options, I think that's true, and I could just add, I'm not going to put this in there, but, I'm on a slew of emails from a slew of people to the extent of, like, the local DEP woman and this, that, and the other, and federal grants are coming in and forwarding those and finding out we can't do anything about it. So there's quite a lot of activity going on.
Absolutely.
I also attended the Neponset River Valley Association Community, blah, blah, blah. I can add that onto there.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Janet was there too. Were Janet, you at the Neponset River Valley Association, that YMCA focus group?
Oh, like a survey or?
Yes, it was that focus group at the Y.
Yeah, a
Okay.
bunch of us did that. It was
So-
very interesting, actually, to meet those
Two
people.
of us went, so that counts too. All right, so we will beef that up. So I guess the big question, Aisha, do you have anything other than, we'll talk about interim recommendations, whether it goes in or goes out, any other thoughts about, I'll give you a minute to look at it.
The students, that was kind of like, we did have like a survey, like Rachel had a map on what we wanted people to like. Maybe we could talk a little.
I can't hear Aisha, so maybe she
sorry.
could.
Oh, I am so sorry. I
That's
apologize.
okay. It sounded like you were in a pillow.
I was trying to say Rachel did a really good job after the Stoughton's Day when we had the survey. We had this whole mapping stuff, and we were able to tell where we were. If that's something we just want to point out. So we attended the Stoughton Day. We had a lot of people who actually took the survey. From the survey, we were able to tell that this is what the community, people who reside in community, are gearing towards. If you want to add that, I mean, it's optional.
That's a good point, and obviously Rachel did the, collecting the data and the analysis of the data. And Rachel, do you have, I'm curious what your current number is, or if you can email
We're
me.
at 196, so I think we should honestly close the first iteration of the survey. I have a second survey specifically for the schools. I'm going to send you the link. And if there's any kind of demographic information that we want to include, I just asked if you're a student, if you're a parent or a teacher, if you're faculty or staff, and I just wanted to ask a little bit more about where people are in, so I was thinking this was for students or people who work at SBS. So I have student SBS, parent, guardian, faculty, staff. Is there another category I should have? just so that we can say like, students want this, parents are interested in this.
That's
Just get a
great.
little more specificity
Yeah.
about what people are doing.
Yeah, and if you send that on, we can put it on the agenda for next time. But that's a really great point. People are thinking of so many things that we talk about the survey analysis and data analysis you've done. And if the number I heard was 196, is that your response number?
That's what we currently have,
Okay.
196.
All right, and we're definitely going to get that over 300 by the time we're done with the YMCA.
Oh.
We'll be all over them.
Yeah,
Okay.
Are any of these being collected, are there physical copies of any of them being collected? Because I can type them up
Yeah.
very quickly.
We have
So-
physical copies, which I think you have, but I think most,
I had the Stoughton Day surveys. I
Yes.
wanted to know if there were any other physical copies.
not so far, but when we go to the Y, I think we'll give the option of the QR code or sit here, or stand here for 2 minutes and do the
Yeah.
physical survey. So
Right.
that's the plan there. All right, so sounds like we're going to beef this up, add a lot to it. I really appreciate people's thoughts because this was kind of thrown together by me. And do people have, I guess, thoughts on the concept? Do we include the interim recommendations or not? Maybe, just let me maybe start with Michael. What do you think?
I don't think so.
Okay, okay.
To me, I mean, it shows that.
Can't hear Michael.
Oh, sorry, Michael, if you make sure on your mute.
I don't think so. I mean, it does demonstrate that we have taken into account people's concerns with the survey. It demonstrates that we have a sense of a number of the town-specific initiatives that we're looking for sooner rather than later, possibly. But for an annual report, it seems a little bit detailed.
Okay.
I do think, do we have a line, rather than, adopted the following interim recommendations,
Could say exploring.
just say we have identified a number of interim recommendations that will be forwarded to, or whatever we're going to do, whatever we're going to do, which will be forwarded to the appropriate departments, which will be circulated among the right people, whatever, however you want to phrase that. But I don't think listing them specifically is really part of an annual report.
No.
Would be
Okay.
my sense of it.
All right. Ayesha, your thoughts about including or not including interim recommendations for this annual report?
I would say let's hold off on including it now. We could just freeze in the fact that we do have interim recommendations and we're looking forward to forwarding to the appropriate people that needs to know.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else just want to raise your hand if you have questions or thoughts about the interim recommendations? It sounds like the weight of authority is suggesting we will not put them in, but we'll have a general statement.
I personally would want to include them because I think that it's good to see what the work is. So if we're voting, I would vote yes on including them. I see the points either way, but I would say it's good to show our work. It's good to get people thinking about this. It does not seem out of line with what I've seen of like the library's annual reports over the last 6 years.
Okay, let's
So-
put it up for a vote.
All right, so Laura, your thoughts?
So, sorry, but remind me how the annual report lines up with the town meeting and how it might or might not pair up with our article. Is this something that's going to be available within the warrant, or is this totally separate?
Here's my memory, and I'm looking at Michael, who can correct me if it's wrong, is that there's two separate big fat booklets. There's a warrant itself, it would not be included in the warrant. There's a separate booklet, and I remember this because the school committee would have a report which would go on for multiple pages. And you can pick up that booklet, I think most people do, and while you're sitting at the lengthy town meeting, you can flip through and read reports of this committee or that committee and see what they're doing and see who the members are and all that kind of information. And I think it's helpful for us to be transparent about what we've done and what our work is and where we're going, especially because I don't think it doesn't tie up directly with the article, although I would say you are allowed to put a quote, something in the appendix of the warrant itself, which can be something related to supporting your article. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah. On the other hand, if you do include these things, one thing you want to be careful of is that if we're asking for money for a consultant and all, you don't want to get derailed by people who decide who have looked this over, and people do read these things, who
Yep.
look this over and actually want to take your conversation about
Into
consultant
those
money
details.
down a very different road and spend a half hour arguing about promoting composting or promoting this, that, or the other thing. I think it can serve as a number of red herrings.
Okay.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess and that was kind of my point was, if this is something that would be supportive of our article, to say, like, we've already thought of these things and now we just kind of need to formalize it and get some data and put the plan together to show that we've actually done work. But I agree with Michael that it can derail or lose focus on, or cause us to lose focus on what the conversation at hand is. So based on that, I'd like to have some of these things in our back pocket if we get asked at town meeting on like some of the things that maybe like publishing it at this point isn't I mean, I'm of two minds like you, Rachel, honestly, but knowing how town meeting can go, and we don't want to lose focus.
Yeah.
All right.
I see that.
All right, so it seems like the sense of the group, I don't know if we know it, is not to add specific recommendations, but I just want to confirm, is it okay that if we leave in these contact mass save little things in here?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, just a little messaging about, because people might be sitting there thinking, I read about it all the time. I'm a little concerned. I don't know exactly what my first step is. And where you sort of point people to a first step, I think it might be helpful. So sounds like I'm going to do a lot of more edits to that. And is it okay with people if I make the edits we've discussed and then send it to James, and James and I can do the final version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So looks like we are done with the annual report. And
Get ready for bed. How about you start? Have you peed? Oh, sorry.
all right. So any other announcements? Something popped into my head, but I have forgotten my announcement. But then the next item will be public comment. But I just wanted to, something I also wanted to mention, just I hope I can follow up on and get an answer for you, is I asked Mr. Coulter with respect to the new fire department. So Kathy Stanley department building. So Kathy Stanley has said that it's going to have heat pumps with like a little bit of gas heat. But anyways, it sounds like it's going to be very sustainable in its design. I asked Mr. Coulter if they were going to have EV charging stations, and he did not know, so he referred me to the fire chief. So I have a call into the fire chief. So hopefully I'll have an answer to that question, and I can report back to you on that. And then again, before we get to public comment, is the holiday is not, so we'll be meeting 2 weeks from now, and the location to be determined. Appreciate everybody who's participated virtually as well as coming out on this cold night, and appreciate the people who came out on this cold night for me. But I do believe, do we have somebody who would like to make public comment? And so I appreciate that in this nice big hallway. It's actually been a very good meeting, and it's been very quiet. So if you would like to stand up, I don't know if that microphone is working, and you can tell us what your public comment is. And I would just sort of reiterate what the school committee says on their website too. We don't sort of have a debate back and forth, but we're happy to take a public comment for a couple of minutes now. And if you'd like to give us your name.
You have
to make it green. Okay, there you go.
Sorry, we can't hear.
Okay, she hasn't talked yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Jonna Rosenblatt. I had asked
Just a little bit louder, I think.
I had asked at one of the meetings before I was rudely cut off and told and unmuted. But anyway, I wanted to know if you've given any thought to the fact that there is thermal runaway and there are problems with the batteries burning. And I went through that whole thing, and you said you'd get back to me, and I haven't heard anything. So I'd like to know what your answer to that is.
I would like to say, as a committee, we are not privy to answer to such questions. We do have people who are specialized to take those comments, and if you could direct those questions to the appropriate bodies, you will get the answers that you want. Thank you.
Well, I'm saying that if you're trying to implement and mandate these batteries, or these cars, I should say, with this issue with the batteries, then why wouldn't you want to address that? Why would you want to keep it so, go away and don't, go talk to somebody else? Why wouldn't you want to address it?
So I just want to clarify, so public comment, you're free to make your comments, your thoughts, and your opinions. It is not a question and answer back and forth. But we
Okay.
duly note the question that you have raised,
Okay.
which is fine, absolutely fine.
Okay, then the other question I wanted to ask was, you had mentioned that you talked to the superintendent of schools, Mr. Beata, and I wanted to know, was one of the issues that you had talked about, was it for the school buses to have an electric, for us to get electric school buses? Was that one of the issues that you discussed with him?
So we don't do questions back and forth, but, we'll continue to report on our meetings with all the town officials
All right,
as to what was discussed.
It's kind of an exercise in futility for me to ask a question, but there's no response, so, okay, I see. Okay,
All right, thank you. And does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn at 8:40.
I support.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning, we'll just go one at a time, starting with James.
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Michael made the motion. I vote to adjourn as well. And thank you, everybody. And Aisha, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Thank you, Aisha. I'm still working on this virtual in person, but I do love my committee members who come in person because they make me feel supported. But everybody makes me feel supported. I would just like to commend the committee for this has been going on for 7 months now, and the attendance has been fabulous, and the feedback has been fabulous. I think we've got good momentum, and so I'm very excited about continuing to work with you. Everybody have a good night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Location to be determined.
Nice to meet you, Janet.
Thank you,
Nice to see you, Rachel. Nice to see you, Lauren and
The
James.
5-year-old saying,
Right.
I'm virtual though.
Hold on.
Good night.
Good night.